It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the UConn head field hockey coach, Coach Paul Caddy. How are you doing today?
Great, thanks, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get into coaching college field hockey?
So you may notice with my accent that I'm not from Carolina or America originally. And so I actually did American studies for my undergraduate degree. So I studied at the University of Wales, Swansea, and I did a gap year at the UMass Amherst. And whilst I was, one of the reasons I went there is because they had field hockey, and I wanted to stay active because I played at a pretty high level at home with men's field hockey. So UMass, I helped out as a volunteer assistant. And then I realized that they got paid, a reasonably good salary, like a teacher's salary, I guess, to do something that you love. So I like, well, maybe this would be a career option for me. So I came back and did my master's at Quinnipiac and helped out coach field hockey, as well as chipping in a little bit with lacrosse, which I knew nothing about. But it's a sport, and I picked it up relatively quickly. And I think I had a little bit of, I think I helped a little bit, probably not a lot bit, but I was a good bus driver, put it that way. So that's how I kind of got into college coaching, and the ball was rolling from then.
What was your time like at UMass as the volunteer assistant?
I loved it. I'll forever be grateful to Patty Shea, who gave me the opportunity to help out with the team. And I was a junior in college and just wanted to play the sport that I loved, and I was able to help some of the kids, I think, more with technique. I wasn't really very much involved with any of the tactical play, but I played at practice and raised the level and helped them with some of the things that technically that they needed to work on. It was a great experience.
What was it like, obviously, getting your first head coaching job at the University of Wales?
University of Wales, Swansea. So actually, that's what we talked about previously. I really just helped out as an assistant coach at the University of Wales, and it's the collegiate system is very different than it is here. It's you pay to play. There's first, second, third, and fourth and fifth team sometimes. It's a much more social game. Obviously, at the top level, it's a very high level. But they don't hire full-time coaches. It's a voluntary position. So I was really helping out our women's team in my fourth year, the year I returned back from my year in America.
What was it like, obviously, seeing them crowned champions in 95 and 96?
So University of Wales?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so actually, that's my playing career. So probably most Americans don't realize it, but field hockey is, I think, the third largest sport in the world for men. It's bigger than basketball, it's bigger than football, it's bigger than baseball. It's a global sport, whereas a lot of the American sports are more based in North America. With obviously Europeans love a bit of American sport, but we don't play it. I played at a pretty high level. So I played West of England under 21s. I played in the top league in England. And for the University of Wales, we were Welsh champions. And Wales is a small little country, but we were Welsh champions a couple of times and played in the top British league. It was called BUSA then, British University Sports Association, and now it's Bucks. And I played for the University of Wales as a whole in the British Universities Championship against the Irish, the Scottish, and the English, which was a great experience. But most of my hockey in England, in Wales, was playing, not coaching.
Of course, what was it like getting into coaching and being an assistant coach for Quinnipiac?
Quinnipiac, it was great. Again, Becca Main, or Becca Coley now, Becca Main Coley was the head coach, and she took a punt on me. I wrote to every Division I school in America and only got a few responses, and Quinnipiac was the right place for me. I went there. They were newly raised to Division I, and Jack McDonald was the AD that kind of launched the university from Division II or III up into Division I. So I think it was year 2 I was there. So it was definitely a transition. We played on grass, not on turf. It wasn't terribly well financed at that point. But yeah, I had a great opportunity. Becca allowed me to do a lot of coaching, particularly as she just, the first day of our season, I believe she gave birth to her first child. So I was able to fill in for her for a little bit, although I think she was back within a week. Coaching again, as coaches are, she's driven. So yeah, it was a great experience. It's a beautiful school in Connecticut, small school, at the base of the Sleeping Giant Mountain, and now they're one of the powers for ice hockey in America. They've made a national championship game. Rand Pecknold's the head coach for ice hockey. He was a good friend when I was there. I lived with the 2 assistant ice hockey coaches. Yeah, it was a really great place to get my feet wet and learn about the NCAA. And also, the players were awesome. I can't speak any higher of my experience at Quinnipiac. The people are supportive, and it made me fall in love with coaching. And that's why I'm here today. Like if it had been a bad experience, I'd probably be back in England. So thank you so much to Becca and to Quinnipiac.
What was it like, obviously, going to the Big Ten and coaching with Ohio State?
Yeah, so the Big Ten, it was great. Like there's obviously a lot of benefits to being in a Big Ten school. Like finances are good. You don't want for anything. A lot of equipment, travel budget's high. So it was, there was many positives to being at a Big Ten school. I think we were middle of the pack at Ohio State that one year I was there. But coming out of England, the Midwest wasn't really my cup of tea. I didn't feel as comfortable there as I did when I was at Quinnipiac or UMass. So when the opportunity came to go to UConn in the Northeast, I jumped at it because that's where I felt most comfortable being an Englishman, not in England. So I was really happy to leave the Big Ten and come back and work in the Big East. And obviously it was a great decision for me because 3 national championships, many conference championships. Now I'm the head coach. Took me 20 years to get to this position, but I can't speak at any high. My experience at UConn's been amazing. I love the place. It's the right place for me, and I'm I couldn't be more appreciative to be here.
What was it like, obviously, getting to work with the U.S. field hockey team, as well as obviously during your college coaching time?
Yeah, so it's the U.S. is a great place. It's a very supportive peer network with field hockey. So we're, for the most part, all friends. So the Big Ten, the ACC, Colonial, America East. There's some really great people. We share ideas. A lot of us work together with high performance with US hockey. So I've worked with high performance teams in conjunction with, Carla Tagliente was at UMass. Justine Sarri was at UMass before she went to Louisville. Carla's now at Princeton. I got to work with both of them. I certainly learned from them, and hopefully they learned from me. They're great coaches and great people. And then I was lucky enough to be selected to go with the under-21s as the assistant coach to Holland with Janneke Schotman, a gold medalist from Holland. Great coach, great person, great experience. And then after that, I was Craig Parnham asked me to go on tour with the national team as assistant coach to New Zealand. We played against New Zealand, Argentina, who were, I think, the reigning silver medalists at that point. and then Korea, who have are a very strong field hockey nation, both in the women's game and the men's game. So I was in Chula Vista training for a few days before we left, and then almost 3 weeks in New Zealand playing multiple internationals. And yeah, it was a great experience again to work with Craig Parnham, who's a fabulous coach and an even better person. Nate Franks was the video analyst there. Again, really knowledgeable field hockey mind. To work with him was fabulous. Yeah, you know, it was a great opportunity. Now I had I think my daughter was one at that point, and so I missed her. The 3 weeks away was a lot, which is part of the reason why I haven't really pushed to do too much more of the international stuff, because I like being with my family.
Of course, what has it been like for the last 10 years, obviously, to be the associate head coach for UConn and now become the head coach?
I mean, I think, I mean, did I want to be a head coach before now? Yeah, of course I did. You know, I wanted to have my own program, but this is the best possible scenario where I got to be a head coach of the program, where I've come from being a very inexperienced coach to associate head coach and a very experienced coach. And I've been mentored by Nancy Stevens, who's one of the greatest coaches in our game in the US. So I feel like I'm more than ready for this position. Whereas some people that, you know, get positions as younger people or don't have the mentor that I had, might struggle a little bit with a transition to the head coaching position. Whereas I think the only trouble I had was the fact that I became the head coach in a COVID year. And, you know, all those 20 years did not prepare me for a COVID. And I think that we've all been flying by the seat of our pants for a little while here. But I think we're getting in a bit of a groove, and I think we're almost on our way out of this pandemic. So fingers crossed.
What was it like, obviously, winning back-to-back national championships in 2013 and 2014?
I obviously, you know, it's why we do it. We, you know, part of the reason why we do it, we want to win championships, and national championships is the ultimate goal. I think winning a semi-final, you know, before we won that semi-final against North Carolina in a shootout, we'd been, I think, 5 or 6 semi-finals and not one. So getting past that hurdle was a huge thing. It was an emotional moment for Nancy, Sherry, and I, and the team. And then, you know, beating Duke in the final was unbelievable. But, you know, really, the most special part about the whole thing, it was not the actual end product of the national championship. It was the process. You know, the team was resilient. They were wonderful young women, very motivated, very together. You know, the defining moment of the season, in fact, was a loss. So we lost our regular season game to Old Dominion 5-0. And we, you know, the coaches kind of regrouped. We kind of reanalyzed and recommitted, and the team did the same. And after that moment, you know, I don't think we conceded a goal for the rest of the season, and won a national championship. So, you know, a 5-0 loss, which is a lot at hockey, in field hockey, it's a lot, turned to be the most important game of our season. And the character of the team just shone. And we know we won the national championship, but the process of getting there is the gift. You know, the each and every moment we got to spend with that team was just a blessing, and we missed them all. But you know, and we lost some important players that year, and when we won the second in a row, it was, you know, a little bit of a surprise maybe, but again, they were a remarkable group of young women. We added some people to the 13 squad, and they did really well. Nina Klein was a redshirt freshman goaltender, and she played out of her mind in the final. So yeah, it was a great couple of years, but it was really the process and getting to build that with the team and with Nancy and Sherry, that was the special piece. Like, so winning champion, you win the championship, you're like, cool. That's, you're super happy, you're excited. There's, joy, a lot of joy. But then, 20 minutes later, you're kind of still soaking it in, and really, it's almost 10 years later, I'm still soaking it in. But the things I remember is the journey, not the end of the journey.
Of course, can you talk about the 2017 season, obviously having a perfect season, going undefeated?
So, I mean, I don't think any season's perfect. You might not lose a game, but there's certainly there were imperfections in the season which we had to kind of navigate through. And I think that not losing a game is a challenge in itself. I talked about the 5-0 loss to Old Dominion being a defining moment for our 2013 season national championship. It made us regroup and work harder. I think that when you don't lose a game, maybe the team don't work quite as hard, and maybe the coaches don't. Things are going well, so you're not really analyzing things and maybe making changes that you would have if you'd lost a tight game. So the challenge of the undefeated season is the fact you don't have the defeat to make you really, really work harder. So again, a special group of players. I think great leadership allowed us to get better during the season and grind out some big wins. The final game against Maryland, I think it was 2-1. I think it was a real midfield battle. And we had some special goals from a special player, Charlotte Feitner, was the decider between the two teams. So yeah, undefeated is not easy, but we were able to do it, and it's pretty incredible.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you have helped build for the field hockey program at UConn?
Yeah, so again, it comes from the top, and obviously, like, that's me now, but for 30 years here, I think, or more than 30 years, it was Nancy. And the way that people coach has changed over the last few years. It's there was a lot of telling the athletes, this is what you need to do, and left, right, move forwards and backwards. Kind of, I think the term is joystick coaches, where they treat the kids like a video game. And Nancy's been always one to empower the athletes to make their own decisions, make mistakes, and be brave. And so really, what I've done since I took over is just reinforce that. And we talk about, you can see the act like a champion behind me. Being the A is being authentic, so being you. The C is being courageous, so being brave. And the T is transcendent, so being the best version of you. And I think that we've just empowered the athletes to become the best version of themselves. And sometimes that best version is a version that they never thought was achievable. So they become an athlete and a player that they thought that was above them. And that's just that is so satisfying for a coach to see someone that really achieves wonderful things, maybe that they didn't think they could.
Can you talk about, of course, what the culture has been like of obviously building championships and being a championship team?
Can you repeat that again? Sorry.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture of building championships and being a championship team?
Yeah, so the culture, if you change, you start a program, the culture is the hardest piece to build. Usually you bring in the athletes that are good players, but in sports, in life, if you surround yourself with good people, then usually good things happen. And in our recruiting process, we the parents will come in, we'll meet the parents, and that good old saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, is very true. So, if you see good parents and good people, then usually their kids are good people too. So, we recruit the families, not just the kids. And, they're fun-loving, energized, competitive kids that want to have fun and win. And within that, we give them leadership roles and empower them to have ownership in the program. So I think having ownership in the program is a big, if you feel like you belong and it's yours, You want to work harder for it. So the moment the freshmen get in or commit, we remind them that this is now their program. It's not my program. It's not Nancy's program. It's their program. We're here just to kind of make sure that they're steering in the right direction, and to help them with some technical stuff at time to time and some guidance. But you're only as good as the players on the field, and we've been very lucky to have great people, great families that have been Huskies and still are Huskies.
Of course, how has it been like being the associate head coach and having those championships, and now having been the head coach and trying to obviously win the championship for you for the first time as head coach?
So it's not honestly like this sounds kind of, but it's not for me. Each team is different. It's for the team. So Nancy wasn't, and Nancy, Sherry, and I weren't winning championships for us. We were doing it together with the team. So like the championships were everyone's, and I'm including athletic trainers, doctors, academic advisors. Mackenzie Rivers is our equipment manager. She's unbelievable. So it's a group effort. Like Casey and Steve do our grounds here, so they plow our fields when the snow is out, they water our fields. So it's a group effort. So I think that nothing's really changed. Nancy's my volunteer assistant now, so she's around all the time. We've added Chrissy Davidson, who was one of our best players ever. She's a center midfielder for us on the 2013 and 14 team. Played on the US squad for a little bit and professionally in England. And so we've added her. So we really haven't had any subtraction. So Nancy's still here. Sherry and I are still here. We now have Christy, and she's unbelievable. But it's not much has changed. It's just, we're just lucky to have this super supportive athletic department, and the people that we get to work with on a daily basis, and the team are unbelievable, and that usually breeds success.
Who are some of the teams that you face in your conference, and what is it like also facing teams like Carolina and Duke out of conference?
So we actually don't play. We've not played Duke out of conference. We've only played them in NCAA tournaments, and I think we're 1-1 or 1-2 against them in NCAA tournaments. So they beat us in a quarterfinal, I think, and we beat them in the national championship game. And obviously, they're a great team, well coached. Get a lot of really good talent from the US and from overseas. And Carolina, until this year, I think they've been to 10 consecutive Final Fours, 3 national championships in a row. They're always a top 5 team, tremendously well coached. Really, when you watch them on tape, on film, you like the way that they play and the way that they do things, and you look forward to playing them because you're playing a team that plays hockey. Some teams are a little bit more direct and without quite as much possession, and with equal success. But I enjoy playing against a team that's going to try and play possession hockey, and Carolina does it as well or better than anyone.
Who are some of the teams that you play in conference?
So we're in the Big East. So we play Providence, who are a Big East team, Villanova and Georgetown. And then we have some affiliate members. So we have Quinnipiac, Temple, or we're a Big East team and now in the American Conference. And then we added Liberty University and Old Dominion at different times. So we have the 2 teams in the South. And regardless of where anyone is ranked in the season, once you get into a conference game, it's a fight. And Providence College, I would say, is one of those teams. Their head coach is Diane Maddle, who is a former Olympian, former UConn Husky national championship winner, and Honda Broderick Award winner, so best player in the country during her time as a player. She is a competitor. She is a great person, great coach. And when we play Providence, it's a battle. It's a hard game, and we could be ranked anywhere, they could be ranked anywhere, and it's going to be go down to the wire. So they've had some, they're tough kids, and they play us hard every time we play them. Villanova and Georgetown are always improving teams. They're getting some good talent now. Georgetown are a little bit restricted by the fact that their playing surface is not as, they play on a field turf and not a AstroTurf, so that hurts them a little bit. But then when we go and play there, we have to play on field turf is a challenge for us. So in the year we won in 2017, we were undefeated. I think Georgetown were not very highly ranked, and on their turf they fought hard, and I think we won 4-3. Is one of our tightest games. It's a conference game. It's a hard game. Georgetown battle. They're getting better every year. They bring kids in. They're competitive. But the main rivals in our conference, I would say, have been Old Dominion, and now Liberty. And Liberty beat us this year. They had a great side, well coached, great. You could see they had great team spirit and wanted to play hard for one another. And we lost in the Big East final for the first time in, I think, 10 years this year. So obviously we're very disappointed. But we lost to a great team, and they actually went to the national championship game, and they lost to Northwestern in the national championship game. So, although we lost a Big East
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free